Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Recently there was a scientific paper published, and now actually unpublished. I'll get into that a little bit later, but it was just published recently. There was a bunch of articles just in the last couple of days all over the internet talking about this new paper from these scientists, two of whom are from Harvard, surprisingly, and they put forth a hypothesis that says that what's really responsible for UAP is not perhaps extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings, but perhaps cryptoterrestrials, which falls under the ultra-terrestrial umbrella somehow. Basically, crypto-terrestrials would be things that are here the whole time, and we just don't realize it. They're basically living in stealth, and they keep their distance from the human race for the most part. But it's a very interesting paper, and it's unfortunate. I actually read this paper yesterday. I was able to download it because on just about all these articles that I was perusing yesterday, there were links to this article, to this paper, this research paper, and you would take it to ResearchGate, where they have all these different scientific papers published. And I was able to read it. I was able to download it so I could read it easier on my computer. And it's a fascinating paper. Unfortunately, right now, you can't read it. But there are some articles that are out there where you could get the gist of what this paper is stating. Now, if it's true, if what these people are saying, these scientists, if these are actually crypto-terrestrials, meaning that they've been here the whole time, then that means at some point in the future, I'm going to have to change the name of my podcast from Extraterrestrial Reality to Cryptoterrestrial Reality. But then again, I don't think that's ever going to happen because I don't think anyone's ever going to be able to prove, not anytime soon, exactly where these things are coming from. Although I think a lot of us believe that they are coming from other planets. And actually, these scientists say there's more of a chance that they are extraterrestrial than they would be crypto-terrestrial. Actually, they give the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis about a 10% chance of being real. And I just think it's fascinating to see hopefully this paper gets put back online so people could check it out, because it's incredible to read this incredible piece of information put together by people who are scientists, scientifically minded. The amount of research that they did to put this together is really astounding. I mean, there was a great number of references on the bottom of this article where there's all the different sources that they turned to for their research. It was just really well put together. You just don't usually see stuff like this coming from the scientific community, and I find it funny that it's not there now. I have no idea why this is. Maybe there was some sort of an error in there, and they needed to remove it, and they're going to fix it and put it back on. We could only speculate on why it was taken down, but for the time being, it's not available to read. But when it does become available, I would highly recommend that people check this out. If you're interested in the non-human intelligent presence on this planet, then this paper is definitely something to read, and it's fascinating. But anyway, there's been quite a few articles, and one of the better articles I found was on a website called Indy 100, and I'm going to get into some of this article here. We'll talk about read some of this article and talk about it as we go through it. But anyway, it says, for one thing, the reporter who wrote this article is surprised that this is coming from some Harvard people. Harriet Brewis is who wrote this article. And by the way, the research paper itself, it was written by Tim Lomas, who's a psychology research scientist with the Human Flourishing program at Harvard University. Brendan Case, who's the Associate Director for Research with the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard, and also Michael Masters, a Professor of Biological Anthropology at the Montana Technological University. And actually, early on in this, they point out early on in this paper, they started off, they say recent years have seen increasing public attention and indeed concern regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena. Hypotheses for such phenomena tend to fall into two classes: a conventional terrestrial explanation, e.g. human-made technology, or an extraterrestrial explanation, i.e. advanced civilizations from elsewhere in the cosmos. However, there is also a third minority class class of hypothesis, an unconventional terrestrial explanation outside the prevailing consensus view of the universe. This is the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, which includes as a subset the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, namely the notion that UAP may reflect activities of intelligent beings concealed in stealth here on Earth and or its near environs, like the moon, and or even walking among us, e.g. passing as humans. Although this idea is likely to be regarded skeptically by most scientists, such as the nature of some UAP, that we argue this possibility should not be summarily dismissed and instead deserves genuine consideration in a spirit of epistemic humility and openness. So that's how they started off. And this paper is pretty lengthy. It's 43 pages long. And they basically get into 4 different types of potential crypto-terrestrials that could be here, that could explain UAP. And anyway, we're going to go to this article by Harriet Brewers. And this was, again, in Indy100.com, and I'll leave the link for it. And she states, the fascinating, albeit eyebrow-raising report speculates that sightings of unidentified anomalous phenomena may reflect activities of intelligent beings concealed in stealth here on Earth, or near its near environs, and or even walking among us. And whilst its authors acknowledge that the idea of hidden in plain sight cryptoterrestrials is likely to be regarded skeptically by most scientists, they argue that the theory deserves genuine consideration in a spirit of epistemic humility and openness. Such hypotheses play into the growing conviction that the United States government has coordinated a secret cover-up of alien activity. Last year, this was fueled by former intelligence officer David Grush, who made the jaw-dropping revelation that American authorities were in possession of intact and partially intact alien spacecraft. I just want to stop there for a second. Grush made those statements, and even before he made those statements, a lot of us already, figured this out. We already knew, and now we finally had somebody, telling us, confirming it for us. And we still don't have the truth from the Pentagon, as we all know. But hey, Grush is still out there. Along with other whistleblowers, and we all know that they're hiding this. I mean, obviously they know about what's going on. I mean, if they don't know what's going on, they don't know that there's some kind of a presence here operating here on this planet, then they would be complete, absolute, incompetent idiots. I don't believe that that's the case, though. I think that they're very intelligent and they're very slick and they know exactly what they're doing, and they're doing a great job of covering this up. They've been doing a great job for a long time, but of course that house of cards has come crashing down in recent months, as we all know. Anyway, continuing here, it says, the following month, after a highly publicized UFO hearing in Congress, Majority Leader of the Senate Chuck Schumer announced, this is a quote from Chuck Schumer, just keep this in mind, folks. This is what Chuck Schumer, the Majority Leader of the Senate, stated last year, right? This is unbelievable. This comment in of itself. The American public has a right to learn about technologies of unknown origins, non-human intelligence, and unexplainable phenomena. We are not only working to declassify what the government has previously learned about these phenomena, but to create a pipeline for future research to be made public. Basically, you have the Senate Majority Leader telling the whole world last year that, there's aliens here, and the government, people in the Pentagon are covering this up. That's basically what he stated. I don't know if a lot of people in the news media don't seem to get this part. Like they're going through life like sleepwalking. I mean, they're just basically, for the most part, hacks. That's what they are. Continuing, and yet we still don't seem to have any concrete evidence that aliens exist either down here or on other planets. I beg to differ. Let me stop there. I beg to differ with that assessment. I think Harriet needs to be made aware of some of the things I've been talking about here on my podcast for the past 2.5-3 months. That's allow me to retort. Allow me to, I'm not going to retort right now. I've been doing too much retorting lately. We'll just let it go. We'll let that one fly by for now. Nevertheless, the Harvard and Montana researchers have put forward a number of possible theories as to why this might be. Firstly, the authors are quick to stress the significance of the term non-human intelligence as opposed to alien. They pointed to the fact that when Grush was asked during a 2023 News Nation interview if the government had been concealing the existence on this planet of alien life, he clarified, I would couch it as non-human intelligence because I don't necessarily want to denote origin. I don't think we have all the data to say, oh, they're coming from a certain location. Yes, I guess that's the bottom line here. when someone in the Pentagon gets asked a direct question, like from someone in Congress, and then you hear the person from the Pentagon or who from the administration or whatever saying something to, like Jennifer Granholm recently. There's no evidence. The Pentagon's telling us there's no evidence of aliens in the United States. Well, what about non-human intelligences? What about those? Is there some other sort of intelligent being that's not human that you're aware of? Like, it seems like that's they've been playing a game of semantics here. And that's why this legislation that's been getting proposed or passed over the last couple of years, this UAP transparency legislation, all has this non-human intelligence in there, NHI. They have to. They have no choice, because otherwise they could say, yeah, you asked us if there was extraterrestrials. We said we don't have any evidence of it. Yeah, but they didn't have to say, but they could just say, yeah, we don't know where they're from. I mean, for all we know, they could be coming from the center of the earth, from the bottom of the ocean, or from the other side of the moon, but we don't think they're coming from outside of the solar system. We can't prove that. They could just, that's what they could say later on. That's why you got to be specific. Anyway, in this spirit, the scientist's study focuses on a broad collection of possibilities grouped under the label Ultra-Terrestrial Hypotheses, which all center on the theory that NHI may already be present in the Earth's environment in some sense. The authors quote retired Army. Let me just stop here. They quote a lot of different people. I mean, when you do get a chance to see this actual paper, if they ever re-upload it online, you'll see this vast number of references that they have on the bottom. This was extremely well researched, and what's exciting about this paper is that it was written by scientists. It was a scientifically minded paper talking about this theory, this hypothesis about crypto-terrestrials, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I was up pretty late last night reading it. I read it a couple of times. It was so good. So hopefully they republish it here. But this article, for the time being, this is a pretty good assessment of the entire paper. This is probably the best one that I found online so far. Anyway, it says here, the authors quote retired Army Colonel Carl Nell, who served alongside Grush in the United States government's UAP task force, who defined ultra-terrestrial as connoting any sentient life form regardless of ultimate origin that has resided on Earth or its environs. Under land, under sea, aerospace, for significant duration in a semi-permanent, albeit covert status, excluding humans from modern-day civilization and their known antecedents. Indeed, the idea that these NHA may not be the same as aliens has been given serious consideration, with intelligence insiders allegedly telling Ron James of UFO research group MUFON that a very large contingent of biblically minded people within the Pentagon have sought to shut down investigations into UAP based on the fear that these may actually involve demons coming from hell. Yeah, we heard this one before. In fact, this was what Lou Elizondo he talked about this. I heard other people talk about this, that there's some mindset within the Pentagon believes that these are demons from hell, so we best not play around with that, because we can't fight against demons from hell. I mean, did you read your Bible, son? You know what it says in there? The only thing we can do is blow these demons back to hell. That's the only thing we can do. Just like Jesus would. I mean, if that's the kind of mentality that's going on in the Pentagon, and that's one of the reasons for this cover-up, that's absurd. That's absurd. I don't know. I have trouble believing this one. I guess, we hear these stories, but, are they second and third hand stories, or is somebody making it up along the lines? I really hope that's not the case, that they're thinking that these things are demons from hell. Because that's going to really stunt our progress here, of the progress of humankind here. I mean, that is so backward, I can't even begin to... Where do you start? Others argue that since UAP defy explanation in conventional terms, the only recourse is to turn to unconventional explanations, and as a result, they suggest that NHI could in fact be angels, or what we generally consider the preserve of folklore: fairies, elves, gnomes, trolls, etc. Let me just stop there for a second. Fairies, gnomes, trolls, etc. What if that's what those stories came from? What if we've been dealing with these creatures the whole time we've been on this planet, and some of the stories of what we hear about trolls and fairies and elves and all that stuff, what if there were people, they didn't know what else the hell were they going to say it was, they got abducted, just like people get abducted today and brought into a spaceship, and they're getting some sort of an examination and then let go again. And then what do they go? They go back to their household, and what are they going to say? Elves! If they remembered it at all. But I mean, you have to wonder if that's where those stories came from in the first place. Because let me tell you something, this stuff is really happening. No matter what anybody tells you, right? There's something here, and a lot of us know it, and there's proof now too to go along with it. In case you were wondering, in case you didn't know it, despite what anybody tells you. Similarly, some suggest that UAP are in fact linked to time travelers, with Harold Puthoff of the Institute for Advanced Studies at Austin claiming that there could be an ancient occult group, isolated pre-diluvial high-tech society existing alongside us in distinct stealth. I don't know if I agree with that one, but hey, who knows? But the main focus of the Harvard-Montana study is what is known as the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis, which they say suggests that the NHI responsible for UAP may already be present in Earth's environment in some sense, as opposed to having an extraterrestrial explanation. However, they continue, rather than existing in other dimensions or other times, they are present in a relatively more conventional sense, i.e. within current standard space-time dimensions, but are nevertheless hidden in some way, like living underground. The authors then stress, as with other ultra-terrestrial hypotheses, we should state outright that we consider this unlikely. Crucially, though, we do not regard it as impossible. Indeed, emerging observations seem to suggest it may well have some validity. Maybe this is the way this paper is worded, maybe that's why, maybe some people, some of the other bigwigs at Harvard got a load of this paper yesterday over the last couple of days and demanded to take this down. Remember the hard time they gave John Mack? Maybe that's the reason it's not online anymore. Central to the theory's credibility is the mounting evidence that UAP are not only aerial but can also move underwater in ways that defy explanation. Well, we all know this. It talks about how Rear Admiral Tim Gallatet was talking about USOs acting in ways that surpass human technology and even challenge scientific understanding of what is possible underwater. They also talk about Gary Nolan, who once stated in an interview that NHI come from both outside our atmosphere and from beneath our oceans, adding that sonar images show these things moving at speeds a dozen times faster than our fastest submarines. If the prospect of advanced civilizations lurking beneath our seas wasn't enough, the researchers point out that some UAP sightings involve craft and other phenomena, such as orbs appearing to enter or exit potential underground access points like volcanoes. Then later on it states here, they note that in one article, an observer was quoted as suggesting that the volcano functions as an interdimensional portal, whilst others speculate that some UAP might not only be drawn to such locales, but might come from underground, i.e. with the NHI responsible residing in a subterranean way. They cite former member of the United States House of Representatives Mike Gallagher, who last year posited that one potential explanation for UAP is an ancient civilization that's just been hiding here for all this time and is suddenly showing itself right now. And then they talk about some of the stuff that late John Keel was talking about. John Keel, of course, who wrote the Mothman Prophecies. He argued that since UAP have been consistently active in the same areas for many years, it is quite reasonable to speculate that these objects originate in some unknown manner from these areas, rather than traversing great spatial distances to make brief, random, and apparently pointless visits. Otherwise put, many of the thousands of observed flying saucers and spook lights are more apt to be a part of the Earth's environment than extraterrestrial craft flying in and from some distant point. Well, let me just stop there for a second. I think some people have this misunderstanding about what people in the UFO community think about these extraterrestrials visiting here. I don't think they show up here and then, hang out for 2 days and then leave. I think that whatever's here has been here for a long time now. I think a good chunk of them have been here at least since 1947, when they seemed like they showed up here in force, in great numbers all of a sudden. I mean, all those years before the detonation of the first atomic bomb, right, there was UFO reports here and there, but nothing like the summer of 1947. I mean, you look at those first June and July of 1947, I mean, there's thousands of reports all of a sudden, right? And I don't think it's Cold War nerves or anything like that. People were actually seeing flying saucers and other strange objects moving around the skies. That's what it was. So, that's where I have some issues with this whole crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. I mean, like say for instance, if they were on this planet the whole time, why did it take them 2 years after the detonation? I mean, if the reason is because they're concerned about nuclear weapons on this planet, well, why did it take basically a full 2 years for them to come out and show themselves in great numbers like that? Well, I guess there could be an argument made for that when you really think about it. Maybe it took them that much time to assemble and put together a new arsenal of craft to really impress us. Maybe that's what it was all about. Who knows? All of it's pure speculation, but I still believe that they came from other planets. But hey, I love this paper. It's fantastic. I love this whole concept of crypto-terrestrials. It's very interesting. You never know. It could be. It could be. Otherwise, well, I already read that part. If this were true, it would explain why UAP seem to take such a particular interest in Earth and would do away with all the questions surrounding the logistics of interstellar travel. Okay, yeah, there's all these problems. You always hear scientists, talking about, it'd be too much to travel all these miles through space like that. Millions and millions of miles. It'd be impossible. Impossible to us today. I mean, right now, over the last 20 plus years, we've always had somebody's out there floating in space. Right now, there's 7 people on a space station. I believe at this very moment, right? There's 7 people on a space station right now. That's all we got. We're experimenting with space right now. That's what we're doing. Give us another 100 years, another 200 years, another 300 years, another 1,000 years. Say we're around for another 1,000 years. What are we going to be able to do out there in space in 1,000 years from now? We're going to figure other things out that we haven't even thought of yet. That's where I'm at with all of this. So when you hear these scientists saying, it's impossible, I say, right? Because you just don't know anything yet. We're too stupid yet. That's what the problem. Even our scientists are too stupid yet to understand how we're going to be, how beings could travel great distances through space from one planet, from one solar system to another. And they just can't figure it out yet because we're just too dumb. We haven't been around that long. So that argument always drives me crazy. Anyway, where was I? Furthermore, the authors provide examples of recorded testimony from respected sources insisting upon the existence of NHI, perhaps most notably that of Albert Einstein's one-time assistant, Dr. Shirley Wright. Speaking in 1993 in recordings which only became public in 2021, Wright claimed she and Einstein had helped investigate the famous Roswell UAP crash and that this was not only a genuine UAP, but that biological entities had survived the crash and were subjected to questioning. Even more remarkably, she insisted that these were actually just humans, but in advanced form, and that many of their species actually reside underground on our planet. I have trouble believing Dr. Shirley Wright. I do believe. Here's one thing I do believe. I do believe that people like Albert Einstein, I am sure that back in 1947 when this UFO problem raised its head for the first time, I am sure that people like Albert Einstein was consulted, along with others, other brilliant people. In fact, there's evidence, I talked about it in a podcast a few months ago, where Einstein and Robert Oppenheimer, there was one of the alleged Majestic 12 documents actually is apparently comments from Einstein and Oppenheimer with relation to the flying saucer issue sometime in late June before the Roswell incident. It's possible, but I don't know if I believe what she was saying. I don't think I buy that. I don't think I buy that they were just humans but in advanced form and that they reside underground on our planet, because the beings that we see, with their big eyes, we've heard other people, people like the late Leonard Stringfield, his research looks like these beings are insect-like. They're not like humans at all. In fact, if you look at the Vegas footage, those things look like insect. They have giant eyes. You could argue that they could still be crypto-terrestrials, that they come from somewhere in the planet itself, or they've been hiding there for, who knows, maybe they've been around for 65 million years, since the time of the dinosaurs, but somehow they evaded getting destroyed or becoming extinct like everything else on the planet at that time by going inside the earth. Maybe that's where they hid, and maybe that's where they prospered for millions of years, and now here they are popping their heads up, and they've been here the whole time. That's what these scientists are arguing, that this could be the possible answer to UAP. Former CIA officer John Ramirez allegedly corroborated this claim, revealing that authorities did indeed conduct biological tests and were able to sequence something in those bodies that looked like a genome. And from there, they checked the human genome and saw the correlations. Well, again, how do we know? How do we know that the Greys that people get abducted by, or that seem to be serving these mantis creatures, right? How do we know that the Greys just aren't hybridized insect/humans? How do we know? How do we know that's? How do we know that's not what they are? I mean, they could be something like that. There's just so many questions, folks. This is why we need some answers from the government. The government needs to tell us something that what it knows about this, so we don't just go through life with blinders on about the reality of the world in which we live. Wrapping up their extraordinary paper, the Harvard-Montana experts note that NHI could be lurking in another nearby habitat. A third side of intrigue is the moon, and particularly its far side, which remains perennially hidden from view, they write. Indeed, some observers suggest the moon itself is very strange, characterized, as recently noted by Avi Loeb, by numerous extraordinary coincidences regarding its size, behavior, and composition. As a result, some have speculated that the entire object may be an artificial NHI construction. I actually that's been something I've been reading. I've read that years ago. That the possibility that the entire moon itself might be just artificial, might be hollow, might be some sort of a base. It sounds incredible, but how do we know? I mean, really, how do we know anything about? We just don't know. We really haven't done that much exploration. I mean, over 80% of the world's oceans are unexplored. For God's sakes, I mean, how do we know how the moon that it's just a natural moon, a natural satellite? How do we know that for sure? How do we know that there's not that wasn't put there by somebody, maybe at some point in some distant past? Long before even we were here, before humans evolved. How do we know? How do we know what it is? We don't know for sure. I mean, basically, we're all born into this world. We're basically taught some basic information from our parents and our relatives, right? Teachers in school, they tell us what they know, but they pass on information that was learned and from other people who learned it from other people who learned it from other people. But we don't really know everything. We just don't. Nobody does. Nobody could know. And we just don't have all the answers about what this existence is all about, or what it all means, or if the moon is a real object, or if it's an artificial object, or if it's a natural object. Is there any absolute proof one way or the other that shows us that? Have we done any deep drilling inside the moon to see what's maybe deep inside there? I don't think we have. So how do we know for sure until we do those kind of things? There's just a lot of questions, but we just don't have all the answers yet, folks. We just don't, and we think we do. We think we're really smart, and we are. We're intelligent. I mean, look what I'm doing right now. I'm doing this, sitting in front of a computer, filming myself, and I'm going to put this online later on. That's pretty impressive, right? But there's still a lot we just don't know. We just don't know. Anyway. The researchers point to photographic evidence of anomalous features on the satellite's surface, which some have taken to be lunar bases. Furthermore, NASA whistleblowers, including Carl Wolf and Ken Johnston, have allegedly claimed that even more conclusive photographic evidence of potential bases exist, but that NASA has actively sought to deny, suppress, and conceal such information, the authors write. You know, we always hear this about NASA covering up, doctoring pictures so we don't see the UFO or the bases and stuff. That drives me crazy. It's like we're suppressing history here. We're suppressing reality. They're like some group of people decided to take it upon themselves to suppress all of this reality from the rest of us. Former Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell is on record as saying in 2008, yes, there have been ET visitations. There have been crashed craft and bodies recovered. We are not alone in the universe. They have been coming here for a long time. Concluding their study, the researchers categorized the different subsections of potential cryptoterrestrials in the following 4 groups. And here are the 4 groups of cryptoterrestrials that they talked about here. And I guess we'll go through them one by one. Number 1, human cryptoterrestrials. This would be a technologically advanced ancient human civilization that was largely destroyed long ago, e.g. by flood, but continued to exist in remnant form. It's a possibility, right? But I don't believe it. I'll just leave it at that. Number 2, Hominid or theropod cryptoterrestrials, a technologically advanced non-human civilization consisting of some terrestrial animal which evolved to live in stealth, e.g. underground, perhaps a hominid or alternatively a species much more distantly related to us, e.g. descendants of unknown intelligent dinosaurs. Yeah, that's possible, I guess. I mean, because, these beings, the ones in charge anyway, they don't seem to look human to me. They look like bugs. Number 3, former extraterrestrial or extraterrestrial cryptoterrestrials, extraterrestrial aliens or intertemporal descendants who arrived on Earth from elsewhere in the cosmos or from the human future, respectively, and concealed themselves in stealth. So the first part of this, extraterrestrial aliens that came here a long time ago but have been just living here the whole time. Well, isn't that still extraterrestrial? Even if it's 1,000 generations removed, right? Even if it's 1,000 generations removed, but they came here a long time ago, isn't that still an extraterrestrial group of creatures? They came from space, yeah, and then the ones that originally came here died, but the rest of them stayed here and they've been living here the whole time. That would still be extraterrestrial, wouldn't it? I think that argument could be made. But then the second half of that is actual human beings from the future that are coming back into the past. I don't believe that one. I just don't. Sorry. And then number 4. This is probably if Harvard got mad, right? This number 4 is probably and had them take this paper down, right? This might be the reason why. If that even is the case, I could be, I'm just saying we don't have no idea why this paper disappeared after being on there, and we don't know. Maybe it could have been just they didn't make a correction or something. But it could have been for other reasons. And the number 4, magical cryptoterrestrials. Entities which are less like homegrown aliens and more like earthbound angels relating to the world inhabited by humans in ways that, at least from our present perspective, are less technological than magical, who are known in European languages by names like fairies, elves, nymphs, etc. Nevertheless, we should stress that the Harvard Montana authors are not positing that cryptoterrestrials do exist, rather that they could, and the idea shouldn't be categorically dismissed. Let me just stop there. Yeah, they're saying that this could be real, and that none of this stuff should be categorically dismissed. However, I wonder if some of the other peers that they have there in Harvard think that it should be categorically dismissed. I would have to wonder about that. As they themselves put it, we arguing that UAP do have a crypto-terrestrial explanation, but simply that they could, and the judicious approach is to consider all valid theories until the evidence decisively demonstrates they should be rejected. We therefore suggest scientists should keep an open mind and investigate the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis as a genuinely viable theory. After all, they note, it is the mission of science to investigate all aspects of physical existence regardless of the extent to which they push at the circumscribing boundaries of our notions of conventional reality. Now I'm going to go to the paper itself, and I'm going to talk where it talks more about these magical crypto-terrestrials, which they get into in depth here on this. And this could have been problematic. I would imagine putting forward a hypothesis like this, and I could see a lot of eyebrows getting raised by their peers in Harvard. It says here, the ideas canvassed thus far, while not generally accepted by contemporary natural science paradigms, nevertheless still fit somewhat within their rough boundaries. Aliens on the ocean floor or subterranean hominids would be highly surprising, but not genuinely metaphysically revisionary in any strong sense, and essentially just involve extrapolating from activities in which we humans already undeniably engage, from flying spacecraft to living in caves. However, as noted above, a striking feature of the UAP topic has been the extent to which its phenomena seem to resist explanation in conventional terms, e.g. craft without visible means of propulsion or sources of exhaust. Such observations have prompted some observers, including in the United States federal government and defense establishment, to speculate that unconventional ultra-terrestrial explanations are precisely what is called for, from interdimensional beings to future human time travelers, to the panoply of ethereal NHIs recognized in most cultures, such as the class of beings known in the contemporary West as angels, which Case and Lomas, two of the authors forthcoming, label sacroterrestrials or ethoterrestrials. Most relevantly here, among these varied unconventional hypotheses is a fascinating class of proposed ultra-terrestrial beings that overlap with notions like angels, but which can still be considered part of the crypto-terrestrial paradigm. Specifically, this is the crowd of concealed or fully integrated terrestrial NHIs, or perhaps non-conventional human intelligences that go by many names the world over, but which have traditionally been grouped in European cultures under the broad heading of fairy, or long-livers, elves, gnomes, brownies, trolls, and the like. As Lewis noted in his study of the medieval worldview, the Langevin a place of residence. That's one of the names of this fairy or Langevin. The Langevin's place of residence is ambiguous between air and earth, with their nature conceived as a third rational species distinct from angels and men. So basically, they're arguing what these things could be is some magical creatures that are just here on this earth. That's one of their part of this hypothesis. I can understand putting. I mean, this kind of paper is a scientific paper. This goes further than a lot of people in the UFO community would ever dare go in speculating on what's responsible for UAP, what's responsible for alien encounters. This goes further than a lot of these other. I mean, extraterrestrial and interdimensional. I mean, what could you say? Okay, they're obviously alien in some form. In both of those cases, right? They would be alien to us as far as we would be concerned. But we understand that they're coming from someplace else, from another world, another dimension, or another planet where they've evolved in a different way than we did, but they're way past us technologically at this point in time, and that's why everything they do seems incredible to us. But when you start talking, and then when you go to the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis, and you look, okay, could there be something here? Could something have been living here with us the whole time? We just didn't realize it. We're just stupid to the whole thing. That's possible. But then when you start diving down this avenue, to have scientists diving down an avenue talking about these elves and gnomes and basically magic, that there's creatures here that are magical. Now that's really going too far. I don't think that's what it is. I mean, then again, I can't prove that. They can't prove it, but that's the whole problem with it. I mean, you're putting something forward that's coming from fairy tale books. That's way out there. But at the same time, I think I understand why they included it, because for all we know, it could be. I mean, even though it sounds totally incredible and insane, at the same time, maybe this is what it is. Now, I don't think that's the case, but if you're going to put together different hypotheses, we don't get anything from the government, right? We don't get anything. They keep denying that they know anything. Just like recently I've been talking about Jennifer Granholm, the Secretary of Energy, saying that the Secretary of the Department of Energy, saying that the Pentagon has said for years there's no proof of aliens. They just keep denying. They keep lying about it, even though all these people in this country, all over the world, have encountered these things, saw the craft. There's pictures, there's video, there's all kinds of stuff. But yet the people we put in charge just keep pretending that it's not real. They keep gaslighting us. So we're left with this. We're left with speculation. And then you have some really smart scientists at Harvard decide, okay, what if it's not extraterrestrial? What if it's not any of these other things that people think that there probably are, like interdimensional beings or extraterrestrials? I think it's going to turn out to be extraterrestrial, at least for the most part. I think probably the only cryptids that we're going to find here. I think the one thing that I think has been here that I think there's enough evidence at this point. There's just been so many different reports over the years, so many different encounters from a lot of credible people. Is Bigfoot. I mean, I think that we're going to find out someday that thing is real. That there are some kind of creatures, some human ape-like creatures that are here, very large, that are living in the wild, living in the woods, living deep in somewhere out there. But they're very good at camouflaging themselves. They're keeping themselves away from us. they're experts at keeping their reality from us a secret. They're experts at it, but they do it instinctually. I think. I don't think that they're not. Of course, I don't think they're sitting there with any sort of technology like books and computers and calculators or anything like that. But they're just out in the wild enough over the centuries, over millennia, that they have things figured out that people like us who live pampered lives, because we're born into these pampered lives, will just never figure out, because we're just not smart enough in that kind of sense. So I think at some point we are going to find out that Bigfoot is real. I think we already know that there's some sort of an alien presence here among us. And when I say alien, I want to make it, it's non-human intelligent presence. I think it's extraterrestrial. It could be anything. But could it be magical creatures like fairies and trolls that they're talking about here from the folklore? I don't know about that. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with them including it, because we just don't know. We just don't know, because the people we put in charge aren't telling us what they figured out. What do they know? Tell us about what these, they have recovered bodies there. How many different species have you recovered at this point? What does their DNA tell us? Well, how close are they to human beings? Are they insects? Are they reptiles? What do you know? Let us know. Instead of us having this wild speculation like this. But I tell you, I got to hand it to these scientists. They did a great job. I mean, this is a fascinating paper. Again, you don't see stuff like this every day, and it's unfortunate because that it's not available right now. I'm trying to. I have no idea what the reasoning is behind that, but again, I guess at some point in the future I'll have to update this. I'm going to have to look into this and find out what's going on with it. But anyway, check out the articles. It's something to think about. I don't know. Overall, the crypto-terrestrial theory, like these scientists say, they give it a 10% chance of being the reason behind UAP. I don't think they state how. They don't give a percentage of what the chances that it's extraterrestrial. I don't think they provided those numbers. But they say the extraterrestrial hypothesis has a better chance. They do say that. But I think it's extraterrestrial. I think in the end that's what we're going to find out. But we just need to get some sort of we need more information about this. The government needs to start giving us some stuff here already. I mean, there's no denying anything anymore. I mean, you can't. There's nothing. You can't. You just look like liars now. I mean, there's too much. There's too much with Sean Kirkpatrick lying recently. Maybe and then you have those Peru mummies. I mean, that shows that was something here. Well, maybe there were cryptoterrestrials. Maybe that's what that was. Maybe what happened there, right? Maybe there were cryptoterrestrials that got caught by these ancients in Peru without their ray guns or paralysis belts, and they were forced to live a life of servitude as living gods, and then they got just buried with the rest of the common folk in the end. Maybe that's what it is. I mean, they ain't human. They're not human, right? So what the hell else are they? Where do they come from? Maybe the crypto-terrestrial theory is right. Maybe in some senses it is. Maybe that's what those things are. These non-human mummies or preserved bodies that were found in Peru. Maybe that explains that. Maybe these things that landed in Vegas last year. Maybe they're from under the earth somewhere. Maybe all of this. Maybe they've been here the whole time. I don't believe that. And in the end, like I stated, I don't think that's the case. I think we're going to find out that these things are coming from someplace else, from outside of this planet. But we can never say for sure. I could be proven wrong with that at some point in the future. I don't think we're going to find out in our lifetimes exactly where these things are coming from. We're probably going to never know exactly how many are coming here. I mean, how many are here now? I mean, how many have been here at the same time? I mean, is it a group working together, or are there multiple different groups coming here? Are some of them that come here completely unaware of the ones that have been here, hiding out here for like the last 50, 60, 70 years? I mean, and then they find out the hard way. I mean, what's going on here? Are there battles going on between these beings? That was something that Dr. Gary Nolan was just talking about recently. That it looks like there could be a possibility that there's more than one race of aliens here, and there's a battle going on among us, and we're not even aware of it, between these rival aliens for battle over us, maybe over this planet, over what we don't know, but that's a possibility. There's so many different possibilities. But again, it comes down to the people we put in charge telling us what they know, at least something, an acknowledgement, and give us somewhat of some little understanding of what you guys have learned after almost 80 years about this stuff. You have to know more than the people on the outside. The people on the outside, you're leaving us here scratching our heads wondering what the hell's going on this planet, when you guys are sitting on something. You have to share it with us, right? You have to share it with the world. The world needs to know about this, instead of wondering if these things are fairies and trolls. Right, because that's where that's where some people are. Some brains at Harvard are wondering right now, perhaps, that these things are magical creatures. See, that's where we are now. That's where we are. And I don't fault them at all. I think what else could you say? We don't have any other answers. There's no other explanation. So it could be. I guess there's always that chance, right? Anyway, it's time to wrap it up. I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.